Enterprise environmental factor. With enterprise environmental factors, these are going to be a lot of inputs to our processes. I like to describe these as being a generic catch-all that should basically get you brainstorming about what could affect this process in some type of a way, those things that are not under the control of the project team. However, it will influence, constrain, or direct the project in some type of a way. So this is the world we work in. EEFs could be internal to our organization and affecting only people that work within our organization, or external to the organization and possibly affect our competitors as well. Internal to our organization, we could use the example of what is the work week that we're allowed to actually do work. For most organizations, this would be a Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. For other organizations, it may be a condensed work week of Monday to Thursday, possibly doing 10 hours per day. Perhaps we're not allowed to do any type of overtime. Perhaps we're not allowed to have anybody work more than 45 or 50 hours per week. Perhaps we are required to use certain types of software to manage our projects, or we can only use certain means of communication. These are things that we do not directly control. The project management team is going to be unable to make decisions contrary to these EEFs. Simultaneously, we could have EEFs that are external to the organization also affecting us. So if we look at marketplace conditions, the price of commodities, and this could have a real issue, especially if we have a multi-year project and we have fluctuating commodity prices. Or if we have a project that involves any type of currency exchange to make purchases, the currency exchange rate would be outside of our control as well. We may have legal restrictions. For example, if we are doing some type of IT work or if we're dealing with healthcare data systems, there's many considerations that we have to ensure that privacy is protected. There may be government or industry standards that we have to abide by, and also financial considerations. Consider interest rates and the cost of borrowing if we do debt financing to pay for the project. With organizational process assets, these are the generic catch-alls that are inputs to processes that basically should get you brainstorming about what could help you. Basically, reduce your learning curve. There's two main categories of OPA. Processes and procedures, such as standards, policies, work instructions, templates, and change control procedures. I do want to go ahead and point out that this kind of bleeds over a little bit into the EEFs. Some of the policies that we may be adopting, we may not specifically care for. However, it still does save us a lot of time because we don't have to write them. Let's take, for instance, a human resource policy. If the organization has a policy that we will hire people using a certain onboarding process and that we have certain predefined pay scales, we can go ahead and adopt that as part of our resource management plan. While that policy may be outside of our control to change, it still did cut down our learning curve substantially because we don't have to write one from scratch. With that being said, we can really start looking at how OPA tend to be specific to an organization. If we do not have a human resource policy at the corporate level, what are the odds that we'd be able to go to a competitor and ask them, hey, do you mind if we get a copy of your human resource policy because I'm getting ready to start a project and I need to hire people? So really, we're only going to be able to pull processes and procedures internally. Our organizational knowledge repositories. This is where we're going to have project files from past similar projects. We'll also have historical information, a configuration management knowledge base, and financial databases. Again, this is something that's going to be extremely helpful and help us cut down our learning curve. If we did a very similar project the year before, I can probably pull the majority of that file to use as a template for this project, and that will really expedite a lot of our planning. Now, again, this is going to be very organizational specific. It's highly doubtful I'd be able to go to a competing organization and ask them, hey, have you ever done a project like this? And do you mind if I see your project files and any lessons learned that you have available? EEF or OPA. This is something that is almost needlessly confusing at times. Don't worry too much about trying to differentiate between EEF or an OPA. Typically, EEFs and OPAs are used as inputs as things just to get you thinking about all of those things outside of your control that can influence the project in some type of a way, or those things that could be helpful and reduce the amount of time that you have to spend planning because, Well, we may have already done this before, and we can go ahead and use a template from a past similar project. Generally speaking, the differentiator with OPAs is that they are generally unique to your organization. If it's housed in the organizational knowledge repository, it should be an OPA. So think about your templates and forms, your policies, processes, and procedures. With EEFs, EEFs are not always unique to your organization. They're generally intangible. It may enhance or constrain options and will affect multiple organizations. We see examples of some internal and external EEFs. Our organizational culture and employee capability, these are things that we do not have direct control over. With employees, could we possibly train them and enhance their capability? Possibly, but that would probably be a process in and of itself. It's not something that we can immediately do. The external EEFs, industry standards and market conditions, these would affect competitors just the same as they affect us.